Here's the diagram I made for the project Android Intents. You have my main activity here and my live activity, which displays the intents once it catches them. And then just some text here, edit text, a button, some more of a text view, another text view, another edit box, edit text box, and then a search box. And here I'll show you how I use the app. This is supposed to calculate supposedly the day that you will, or how many years you have left to live, basically. And I just set the average to about 80. And if you set it below 80, it'll put out something. If you set it at 80, it'll put out something different. And then if you set it above 80, it'll put out something different from those two also. And I'll demonstrate. And all it's really doing is subtracting the amount of years you put in from 80 and then outputting that onto the second activity. And if I do 80, it'll come up with this string of text. And we'll put a value over 80. I'll just go with 90. And as you can see, it's something completely different from what you saw in the first two. And now that I'm back at the main page, I'll show you how I use this to access a web page. And I set this by default just to go to Google. So we'll click on that. And I just set mine to open up in the browser basically, and then whatever URL you put in there will just be forwarded into the browser and then open. And if we get more into the code, this is my main activity. And in my first method here, the 4 things you need to make an intent work. From what I've seen working on this, it would be some sort of variable that you can send in as an extra. So mine would be the toLive variable here, and I put that in an if-else statement. So depending on what the user puts in, it will change. And then creating the intent right here, and then putting what activity it's coming from, and then what activity it's going into, and then applying the extra to the intent. And then setting a name to go with the value. So the value would be what's stored in toLive, and the name for that would be value, all uppercase. And then starting the activity with the name of the intent that I use, which was intent. The code I used to make the intents work was the intent filter that I added into the manifest here. To be honest, I'm not really sure what it does, and I'm gonna hopefully figure that out. And I'll move on to the lines of code that were used to determine if the users click the button. And that would be right in here. I set the button equal to a button variable right here. And then I set an on-click listener to handle that, and then if you move down into that, we just get into more of processing instructions, as I would call it. Just getting the value of the input that the users added in. So in this case, for mine, it would be their age. And then here I set up a constant for 80, so I didn't have to put it in here multiple times. And then temp I used to calculate, so I didn't have to store everything in the toLive variable right away. And right here are my if-else statements that I'm using to sort through the age, and then depending on what age they put in, it would go into a different area. And then the catch down here I used in case they were to put in nothing or put in a just a string, because before I added that in, it would actually break the application and post up an error on my emulator. Um, Problems. I think the only real problem I had was just working out all the little kinks. It wasn't really, there weren't any really big problems. I actually really enjoyed doing this project and I thought it was a lot of fun.